Welcome to the life you crave. Simple and sustainable weight loss for women who have better things to do than diet. I'm your host, Leah Pinelli. I help ambitious, badass women stop overeating, overworking, and overgiving to lose weight from a place of love. I'll help you simplify weight loss, end your overwhelm, and create the life you crave. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Life You Crave podcast. You guys, I am so excited to introduce to you one of my dear friends and clients, Margo Ezekiel, who has come to the show today because Margo, her whole life has just blown up in the most amazing way. And I asked her if she would come and be on the show because to me, she is such a true inspiration for women above the age of 45. So let me tell you a little bit about Margo, and then we're going to dive right in. Margo has spent her life balancing technology and art. As a computer science major, she was the only one carrying a portfolio into class. Over the past 40 years, technology won out, and she pursued a career as a user interface designer. The balance tipped, however, in 2021 when she was laid off, and she shifted to making art. Printing and collage became her keys to exploring color, shape, texture, and composition. She started exhibiting her work, found receptive audiences, and was off and running. Margo feels like she has finally integrated both sides of herself. Her computer background has helped her with all of the back office parts of being an artist, and her creative side is absolutely loving using her hands again. She is in her 60s and is finally able to dig deep into art and pursue her potential, which has been such a gift. Margo, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Leah, for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Yes. So I have been wanting Margo to come on the show, as I said at the start, because Margo's I can't even explain it. Well, first of all, you need to go to Instagram, and I will make sure to have this in the notes. But if you want to see what Margo is creating, you have to go check her out. Margo, what's your Instagram handle off the top of your head? Is it just Margo Ezekiel?
Yeah, it's just Margo Ezekiel. Yeah.
You got to go check her out. And look, I am a tough, I'm not easy to impress when it comes to art. I have my degree in the history of art. So I spent 6 years actually studying art, and Margo's work is incredible. But what I think is even more incredible is that Margo, you did not have a career as an artist prior to the last 2 years. So I would love for you to share with my listeners that story. How did you end up where you are today, which is actually you have major showings, all over the Boston area. So tell us how did this happen?
Thanks, Leah. So in 2021, I was laid off, and my husband just had a bike accident, and I didn't want to go back to work because I knew I'd have to take care of him. So my kids and my husband sent me a machine called the Cricut machine, which is a machine to make cards or do all these different creative things. And I said, Mom, we want you to get your creative juices going again. We want to see you for this other side. So I started doing that. And then a neighbor was doing this really interesting artwork. I was really captivated by it. But it was COVID. So she set up a Zoom and she taught me how to do it. And it's something called a jelly print. And it's a way of doing printing really fast. And I just fell in love with it. And I knew at that point that I didn't really want to go back to my traditional job because my husband was retired. And I knew that if I was at a job I hated and he was home all day, we would just never make it. So we agreed that I could, give this a shot. So I learned how to do this jelly plate printing. And it actually with the Cricut and some of the pieces from the Cricut, it all just started to come together for me. And I hadn't really known what medium I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to do drawing or painting or even, I was thinking about doing Fimo jewelry. But none of them were really feeling right. And when I started this jelly printing, it just felt like I'd found my way. And it just started, I could explore and I could just create stuff really fast and mostly using copy paper. So nothing was precious. And I just took over a little spot, in one of the rooms, and I set up a little place to print. And I just started going. And I had some friends who said, you really need to get out there. And I was like, yeah. But one of them was having a pop-up in just somebody's backyard, and they were selling, jewelry and beauty counter stuff and scarves. And they said, why don't you come and set up a booth? So I set up a booth, and we opened at noon, and the first person who came in bought a piece. And I was like, whoa. And then I sold 5 pieces that weekend. So I was really surprised, but really felt like, well, maybe there is something here. And so I just kept on exploring. And then I got together with a woman across the street who taught me jelly plate, another woman who used to live on our street. We started a little art group, and we helped each other figure out how to do business cards, how to do websites, where to get frames, where to get mats, critiquing each other's work, where do you show, all this stuff. So we started this little collaborative, which was fabulous, because you really needed, I needed my tribe, my village. And I was also very lucky that my mother's an artist, and during COVID, we'd use her art room, and I would sit at one end of the table and she'd sit at the other, and we both were doing our work. We were both doing collage. But she's a really good critiquer, and she's worked really hard to be a constructive critiquer now. And so I would work on something, I'd hold it up and she said, no, that corner isn't right, or why don't you try this color? And I just learned so much from her. And it was such a gift to be able to really learn from her at this stage of life, because she's in her late 80s. And I think it just really helped accelerate everything. I think, she taught me so much in those sessions. So since then, I've just been continuing to do art and exhibiting and selling and, trying to figure out what life as an artist means. And I just feel every day so lucky, really lucky.
So Margo, I love that you said that you've been trying to figure out what life as an artist means. And the way that you shared the story, it's such a fantastic story. It makes it almost sound like it's all just been very easy, like you just started creating art and then you were selling it and now you're an artist and this is your life and end of story. But having known you, I know that there's been some challenges not necessarily in the production and selling of your art, but rather in that identity as being an artist.
It's been really hard to call myself an artist. I was giving out a business card the other day and I said, I'm an artist, and I just still shake. It's hard to feel. It's been so much fun. And for me, it doesn't feel very much like an effort. I have all these, pent up creative ideas and juices that have been pent up for so long. It just keeps on pouring out of me still, that it hasn't seemed like I'm justified in saying that I'm an artist, because it's just sort of fell into place and it happened very fast. So I've had some doubts recently that, am I really legit? This, Midwest people are spending years and years and years. And I just started, but then my son said something really interesting to me. He said, Mom, you didn't just start 2 years ago. He said, you restarted 2 years ago. He said, you've been doing this all your life, and you've been preparing for this all your life. And this is just, it's not like you started that then. And he's right. I've taken art classes and done art all my life, but I've never been able to do it full time and dig deep.
Yes.
And I just didn't think, it would come together as fast as it did. And it's been a little overwhelming and intimidating. And I still look at other people's art and I say, that's real art. Mine isn't, and I feel like this imposter. So I'm working through it. And recently I started working with a mentor, and I came to the realization that, I'm really on a journey. I'm on a creative journey, and, my art is where it's at today. I think it's better than it was a year or two ago, but some people like the stuff I did 2 years ago much better. But it's my own creative journey, and I'll get to a place where, I'm able to create the art that I love, that love when I see other people's art. I'm not quite there yet, but I've accepted that this is just a journey, and I can't get there any faster. I don't want to get there any faster, but, and so it's a journey to get comfortable being an artist and saying I'm an artist. And it's a journey trying to get toward the kind of art that I want to make, the kind of art that I love looking at. I'm not there yet, but I'm, enjoying the process and trying to appreciate where I'm at.
Yeah. And I mean, you have made a great deal of progress in terms of that the imposter syndrome itself, right? I mean, I remember we talked about that a lot. And my sister is also an artist, and she teaches art to elementary school kids, but she doesn't have a degree in it. She would never classically trained. And she has had this a very similar struggle with not feeling like she's worthy of the title of artist, right? And so that imposter syndrome is essentially, it's a real lack of confidence. Women tend to suffer from more than men. So what would you say has been the most helpful to you as this journey from, you're, like I said, you have made a lot of progress, and that maybe you're not fully through that, you're maybe not on the other side, and you're not like, oh, I have no imposter syndrome anymore, but you've made such progress in that you're not nearly as impostery feeling as you were, last year at this time. So what would you say has helped you to move through the imposter syndrome?
Actually, it's something you said, Leah, which was really funny when I was saying in one of the meetings that we have that I was feeling like an imposter. She said, oh yeah, just because you just started creating art 2 years ago and you've sold 30-something pieces, then, you've done what all the artists always want to do in like no time at all. Yeah, that's why you're an imposter. And it cracked me up because it was like, someone regurgitating from the outside looking at the story. Right. And I was like, yeah, she's got a point. I think that I started slowly putting stuff up on Instagram, and that was scary at first, really scary, but I got a lot of feedback. And I started to realize that even when I get feedback that someone says, go this direction, or you need to work in that direction, it doesn't mean that I'm not valid or my work isn't valid. It just means I have more growth to do. Like every other aspect of life, my art has more growth left. Yeah. And, I sort of, when I look at it and I look at my life and how, I'm still growing and I'm still trying to improve, and I'm still, I'm working with you and you help so much. It's the same with art. And so, that's helping me realize it's just a process, and there's no perfection. I'm not, even though I'm not where I think, a real artist is, it doesn't mean I'm not on my journey, and I'm on a valid journey, and, having valid experiences.
What is the definition of a real artist?
I don't know. I think part of what's hard for me is my mother is an artist. And so I always thought, that's what a real artist was. She'd never worked out of the house. And so she's always, and she's very, very talented, and she's won awards. And she never, got really into selling and commercials, the commercial side of it. But it always felt like, oh, if I could do art like her, then I'd be real. Our styles are really different. And so, and she said to me recently that I've come farther than, she did in so many ways. And so I don't know what the definition is. I think it's enjoying what you're doing, being able to develop stuff intuitively, and just persisting to keep learning and growing and changing and experimenting, I think, to find your way, to find your, your style and your mark.
Yeah. And what I want to highlight about what you just shared about your process of working through imposter syndrome is that, well, first of all, I'll just say that there are probably a lot of people who have the definition of a real artist as somebody who can sell their work. And you've done that, over and over and over and over again now without even really trying, right? But what I really want to underscore about what you said is that you have maybe not consciously built your confidence, but you have, in everything that you just said to me, and I'm going to repeat it back, I've identified these 4 steps that we can use, like a methodology, a framework that we can use to actually intentionally build confidence. And the first step, although I will admit the first and second steps can be interchangeable depending in terms of sequence, but the first step is just to start taking action, right? It's like, I'm going to create this thing. I'm going to take a picture of it and I'm going to post it on Instagram. And that's what you did. You said, I just started posting this stuff on Instagram. I took action, and it was scary. Like, it's not that it's not scary to put it out there, but you just started putting it out there, even though you were scared. Do I have that right?
Right. It was scary. And the first couple of times it was really scary. And, you sit there and you wait to see what people are saying. And yes. And I actually had to ask my daughter, I said, so people are liking it. Are they just liking it because they're just trying to be nice to me? Or does it mean that they might really like it? I said, Mom, it means that they really like it. They're not just going to do like, I had to like understand the Instagram sort of culture. Because I didn't know how to use it. So she helped me a little bit there, but that was really funny.
That is adorable. That is adorable. Well, and then the second step, which actually, like I said, these two they're in terms of sequencing, they're interchangeable. But as you started to consider a different perspective, and that was like the example you used when I said to you, oh, right, Margo, you're not a real artist because you're, busy selling your artwork and all these things. And, and it was like, oh, okay, maybe there's Leah has another perspective. And so maybe I can just try that on, right? So really trying on a different perspective, which then allows you to continue taking action or to start taking action or to take bolder action, right? That shift in thinking versus when we're busy thinking, I'm not a real artist, I'm not really worthy, I'm not really good, then you are far less likely to take the action of creating the art and putting it on Instagram. So you took the first two steps. And then that third step you mentioned, and I swear I did not prep Margo to say these things, but she hit all four, was that, when you get feedback, you use that as evidence that you still have room to grow, and growth is a beautiful thing. And what that is it's the reframing of failure, right? So I always say to people, you have to make friends with failure. I say this in my coaching practice all the time. We think we've failed when it comes to, how we've eaten, or, I have one client who was just leaving a Marco Polo saying like she had planned for, she'd gone to an event. There were these beautiful cookies there. So she grabbed two. She was going to take one to her husband. And by the time she got home, both were gone because she had eaten them and feeling like failure. And it's like, no, that's not failure. That's actually a beautiful growth and learning opportunity. What was going on there? What were you thinking? What were you feeling? We can use that for growth. Just like you figured out, I can use feedback for growth, right? As opposed to letting that stop us and say, oh, well, F it. See, I'm not really good because I got this negative feedback, or see, I'll never lose the weight because I keep eating 2 cookies when I plan to eat one, kind of thing. And then the last thing you said, oh, by the way, this isn't one of the steps, but it's crucial, is you talked about how there's not really like an element of perfectionism in your work, that there is no perfection. It's a journey. It's a growth journey. And that perfectionism is often is a total confidence killer. And so that's you building confidence just by recognizing that there's no such thing as perfection. But the last thing, and you didn't say it, you said it earlier in our talk, which was that you intentionally built a collaborative community of support, right? So you intentionally found a group that was supportive. And not only that, but your family was being really supportive as well, right? So you had the support of your family, you've had this collaborative group that you guys created together, so you weren't just born with this support, but you intentionally created it. And those are the four steps to really building confidence. And you did all of those. And what I really appreciate is you saying, yes, I did all of those and I'm still not 100% confident, but my work is really taking off, right? Like my art is really taking on.
Yeah, I never thought of it the way you're framing it, but it's it's a really good way of looking at it. And all those pieces were really, really important. And I know, when I was 50, I set a goal of wanting to have a show in our library. It's a local library that has really beautiful artwork. And of course, then it was ridiculous because it wasn't doing art. But so when the application came up, I said, all right, I'll just throw it in because, no, just have to try. And I was shocked when I got in and just so happy and so thrilled that actually this was a goal I'd set in my life. And I haven't set that many concrete goals. And here I was achieving it. And it was fantastic. It was a great high. And then afterwards, I'm like, okay, what next? Because now I've got this goal with my next goal, and it was very powerful.
I know that I love that story. I was going to ask you to tell that story. So I'm so glad that you just brought it in because really, that was a bucket list thing for you. It was no small feat to show at your library. This isn't just a little neighborhood library either, by the way. This is a major library.
Yeah. It's one of the, yeah. So it was a coup and, and it's, yeah, it was good because I knew it was competitive to get in and I didn't expect it. So it was another validation that, okay, this is going somewhere and then people are, appreciating this and respecting it and, wanting to see more of it. So,
and not only that,
and then I got great feedback.
You did. And like you had like, there was one woman who was like calling you profusely to make sure you didn't sell the piece of art she wanted. Like you had people banging down your door. And
Yeah, she bought it
yeah,
before I even finished hanging the show. She like
right.
I was hanging the show and she's like, I want that piece. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
I think
funny.
so. This is what I really want my listeners to hear is that the reason this is this story, your life matters so much to me because you really are an example of, I was telling Margo before we started recording, I had a conversation with a woman just last month who was, feeling like she wasn't worth investing in. She wasn't sure if she felt like she was worthy enough to spend the money to work with me as a client because, and this is what she said, I'm basically at the end of life. And this woman is in her very early 60s. And she does not have any kind of terminal disease. There is nothing health-wise going on. And I had to stop her. I said, what do you mean you're at the end of your life? You have at least 30 years ahead of you, right? What is, but in her mind, it was like, well, my kids are grown. I've had a full career, which she's just retired from recently. And now she's starting to build her own small practice independently. But the point was that she didn't feel like personal development or pursuing these bucket list goals, like you did, was worth it because she's beyond 60. And I would just love, Margo, if you could speak to that a little bit, because it doesn't seem like that ever even occurred to you. But maybe I'm wrong.
No, I mean, I wanted to do art all my life. And my father, when I was applying to college, said, I know you love art, but you really need to study something that will make a living. And I was angry, but, and I got to school and I took a computer class and I actually loved it. Because I was good in art and good in math. And at those days, there wasn't much overlap. They were very separate. Today, you have a lot more opportunity to merge them professionally than you did then. Anyways, but I'm really glad. And, I was able to tell him before he passed that I did that path because making a life out of this art would never, that would have been fun. And, I was able to, have a good career, have a nice lifestyle, raise the kids. And I'm just really glad I took that path. But so when this opportunity opened up, I just felt like, oh my God, I have to run because I've been waiting for this, all my life. And, it's actually when you retire, it can be hard if you don't have something. And I think for me, I was so used to working full time and, that I sort of put all that energy and all that discipline into this, which has helped us go, really fast. But I can't imagine not trying to find and do something when you retire. My husband's discovered photography and he's having a blast. I mean, it's such a great opportunity. And if you don't discover something, then your life is really difficult, because you're just sort of unstructured and and it's just such a gift to say, you have time now to pursue and try different things that you've never had the time or, never been able to try, before for financial reasons. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's a great time. My daughter, both kids have moved out. My daughter gave me her bedroom, which was very gracious, and I've taken it all over. It's the studio, and so everything. I don't know. I can't imagine not taking this time as something really special and as a gift, and thinking it's over because it really can be the beginning. Of something you weren't able to do for various reasons, and that you can finally do.
Absolutely.
So I don't understand that. And actually, I almost feel more strongly that I have to do it now because who knows what the future is? Right. I just have to do as much as I can now because, yes, I'll need to go another 30 years, but probably in 25 years, I'm not going to have the energy to do this the way I have it now. So that also motivates me even more to, really, dive in deep because I have all my physical and mental capacity right now. Absolutely. And I don't want to waste the time,
That's right. So, and one of the things, Margo, is that, you are invested in your own personal growth. You show up to our weekly sessions in our group every single week.
They're so helpful. They're so incredibly helpful. Yeah, it's a great group. You've been such a supporter and such a great coach. And the other women in the group, it's just, you could talk about anything. And, we all started on this as a weight loss journey, and it's become a life journey, with in our group, and we talk about everything, and it's yeah, it's wonderful. It's really, really helpful to me.
Well, and I think that is that's the, if there's one other thing, it's actually related, but if there's one other thing that I really want to underscore for listeners is that you are invested in creating the life that you crave, right? Like you are the one who is signing up for groups and showing up every week and creating art and creating collaborations. Like you are making all of this happen, right? You are taking these actions to make it happen.
Yeah, and I have to say, I think that your program, with the weight loss was such an insight, is such an aha moment that, if you do these different things, I could finally lose weight and keep it off and not, and change my lifestyle and change my diet and not feel deprived and all those things, which I'd never been able to do before. So you almost had a blueprint of like, this is all possible. You just have to know the tools and, apply it and do it. And I think it was really, for me, that was sort of a breakthrough that if you could do that, and there's not a formula, but, there's ways to figure it out, that I can probably do this. There's ways to figure it out,
Yes.
That was always such an obstacle. And then once that obstacle, became more manageable, it felt like other things were more manageable,
100%.
It was really, really, really helpful.
Yeah.
To go through the program and understand it. And to understand the failures, and not feel like they're failures, and help to understand that mindset.
That's right. That's right. Well, and it's a testament to when you are able to kind of figure out your body stuff, meaning, oh, okay, like there's this, if I can use these tools to apply to feel better in my own skin, it actually translates to these other kind of realms of confidence, right? That we maybe didn't really know how to access, but because a lot of times we kind of have to get through that psychosomatic piece first before we can really step out into the rest of it, right? Into our vocation, into our contribution, into our identity, all of those things that you've been working with.
And you got me, to doing exercise regularly, which also just really helps the balance of, if I was doing art all day, I needed the physical release.
Yes.
And vice versa, so all of that, it just all came together at the same time.
Yeah. Well, Margo, I'm so happy that you agreed to come on the show and to shared your story with our listeners, because you were such an inspiration. And so,
thank you.
You have more shows coming up, but what's the best way for people to find you? Is it Instagram? Is that,
Instagram's good. On Instagram, there's a link to my website, which is working on a new website, but it has a website now with most of my work. And contact me. All my contact information is there. But I'm trying to post new work to Instagram, and as I get into more shows, I'll be posting those shows. And I'm into at least one show this fall, and I'm flying to 2 more this weekend. So I'm hoping to be in more galleries in Inland this fall. And trying to figure out what next year's goals are and where I want to be.
I love that.
So my Instagram, yeah.
Okay, so Instagram, we'll make sure that is all in the show notes. And then Margo, to kind of bring us full circle here, what would be, if there's a woman listening to the podcast right now that's feeling like, oh, what's the use? I'm getting older. I don't necessarily think that I should be taking the time or the money or the energy to pursue, a lot of times, people will say things like, oh, that ship has sailed, right? What would you say to them, given your experience?
I think these are the years, that you can make your life whatever you want. If the other shackles are off, then, there's no reason you can't do whatever you want to do. Even if you have financial constraints, there's so much still you can do with whatever you want to pursue. And it's just, I think what I would say is, it's almost like, I would say I want to reward myself by having a brownie. And you would say, no, you want to reward yourself by not having the brownie. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you don't do something like this, then what are your days going to be like? They're going to be like chores and meaningless. And, your life is not going to feel good.
Yeah.
And so avoiding and saying you can't do this stuff is actually, the alternative is much worse to me. Yes. To not take something on and to give up. I think then you decline really fast. I think if you don't keep your creativity and your mind and everything, your body going, then you're just hastening the decline. I really think that you'd have to look at it differently and say, you're not really treating yourself by doing that. You're actually punishing yourself by doing that, by ignoring those opportunities. Sort of like with the brownie, you're not treating yourself. It's not what you really need.
Yeah.
And giving in and saying, the ship has sailed, I'm done, is just, inviting, decline and sort of, much faster than it needs to be.
Yeah.
So I think you just have to really think about the opportunity and how lucky you are if you are able to do something and you have, all the facilities to do it, how lucky you are.
Yeah. And, I think using you as an example, that getting into community of other people who are doing things that are active and inspiring and interesting, getting into community, and also being willing to get uncomfortable, like you said, right? Like, might be uncomfortable to learn a new skill, but at the same time, it's like that is exactly what it takes to build confidence and to really build a life that you want to live.
Yeah, it's been so interesting because I've met all these really interesting artists and had so many interesting conversations. And I just realized the other day that in the last 3 weeks, I've been to 6 museums. I mean, I'd go for a year without going to a single museum. So my life has really shifted, that I'm surrounded by other people interested in art. My activities are all around, which gallery we're going to go to. It's just a very different life. And, but I finally, I think you've helped us sort of say, what do you want? What do you really want? What do you really love? How do you go about doing it?
Yeah.
And figuring that out. And, I think that's the real key to, to these years.
Yes.
I think they could be the best years. I mean, I really do think they could be the best years of your life. I mean, they say they're golden years. It's kind of, a cheap cliche, but I think there's, the real opportunity.
Totally. I mean, I'm not in my 60s yet, but I always tell that story of when I woke up on my 45th birthday and I was like, this is going to be the best decade yet. When really the narrative that we hear over and over and over is that it's all over after 40. It's all over after 35, apparently. It's like, no, we're just getting started. We're just getting
started. We're just getting started. And, I think what helps also is that you have a lot of wisdom from all those years and you've learned a lot,
Yes.
through whatever career you've had, and working with people or, your own strengths or weaknesses. And so you have a much stronger base to start with than you did in your 20s or 30s. And so things I think can move much faster. Definitely. Because you have that base and you've learned all those things.
Definitely.
And and then it helps the empty nest, right? You don't worry about the empty nest as much if you're so busy filling it up with all your stuff.
That's what I was going to say. It's not so empty, right? Maybe empty of children, but not empty, right? It's not empty.
Right. Not at all empty. No.
Margo, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was so fun getting to chat with you. And I know that there's going to be so many women who listen to this episode and they're going to be truly inspired. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Leah. I so much appreciate being invited and the ability to talk about it. I'll see you soon.
You've been listening to The Life You Crave. I lost 30 pounds years ago without dieting, willpower, or deprivation. I'm on a mission to help other women, including you, do the same. You can book a free weight loss strategy session with me over at leahpinelli.com. That's LIAPINELLI.com. See you on our next call or on the next episode. And remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on iTunes.